It's showtime for President Donald Trump's budget. The man who rose to his greatest fame firing people on a reality TV show appears fired up by the reality of showing America his vision for what the federal government should be. Here are the basics of the Trump budget, as explained through other quality NBC programming. The biggest loser. You knew we'd start there. The Environmental Protection Agency, a 31% cut. Things would get Spartan at state, grim at the Department of Labor, and Agriculture would find 20% of its funding taken. The voice of public broadcasting would need to survive without federal money. As promised, the wall gets $2.6 billion. Not that one, this one. Law and order is the president's obvious focus, increases in spending for Homeland Security and defense. Democrats are not powerless. They still hold some sway in the Senate, and there are shades of blue in his preservation of benefit spending. They'll accuse the president of a blind spot for low-income Americans for putting after-school programs on the blacklist. But if it's true that America's got talent, let's hope it's adjusting to some very different priorities. As the president declares, this is us. We reached out to Republicans in Colorado's congressional delegation, hoping to have at least one of them here. Congressman Buck, Tipton, and Lamborn were all unavailable. Congressman Lamborn did send us a statement saying that the president is keeping his promises to shrink the government, to prioritize national security, and to reduce government spending. Colorado Governor Gov Hickenlooper, a Democrat, tells me that he currently has state agencies reviewing the budget proposal to assess its potential impact on Colorado. Governor, thanks for your time.
Of course.
So these presidential budget statements are basically just an outline of their priorities. Was this not what you expected?
In some ways it was what I expected, but sometimes I was surprised at the cuts in agriculture. I mean, what has rural America ever done to President Trump except vote for him? And yet they got some of the largest cuts. I think from the point of view of Colorado, there are obviously some losses where, you know, if this went forward the way it was presented, there would be some serious concerns, but also some benefits, right? The additional military spending, we're got a lot of aerospace and military spending in Colorado. There was an emphasis on cybersecurity. We do a lot of cybersecurity. So I think there's pluses and minuses, but you want to make sure you're still protecting the last and the least.
Let's talk philosophically, though, from the point of view that if it's a priority for Colorado, then Coloradans should spend their money on it.
Yeah, except that generally on things like transportation and housing, there's a system that's been built up over 50 or 60 years where it's a partnership. It's a priority for us, but it's also a priority for the federal government. I mean, listen, I'm no stranger to making tough cuts. I understand that every time you make any kind of a cut, somebody's a loser, right? And you've got to be able to defend that cut. But you know, I want to make sure that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and just for the sake of making cuts, we don't get rid of, you know, valuable programs.
So now the governor tries to convince Colorado's congressional delegation to unite in opposition to some of these cuts. Hickenlooper told me that Colorado's delegation has enough ideological diversity and sway in Washington that if they choose to be together on something, they can hold the line. So we have heard you loud and clear that you'd like to hear our political experts mix it up more. Not mix it up as in fight, but surprise you once in a while and where they're coming from. So here's Republican analyst Kelly Maher on what she doesn't love about President Trump's budget.
Overall, despite the fact that I think the budget is definitely a step in the right direction for reducing the size of government, one thing I wish that we would have seen in this budget is, if we need increased military spending, some justification for that. Because the truth is, I think that there is something that we can find to cut in almost every agency in the federal government. I think that we have a large, overblown bureaucracy, and being able to cut that means holding every single agency, including our military, accountable.
And now Democratic analyst Ian Silveri on an aspect of the Trump budget that he can support.
I mean, look, the fact is there's absolutely something in this budget for everybody to hate, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what you believe or don't. But my job here is to tell you something I like about it. And quite frankly, I feel like the veterans in this country have not actually had the resources they've needed for quite a while. The VA hospital in this state, for example, could really use a boost. Veterans, I mean, homelessness and suicide and mental health, drug addiction among veterans is unbelievably high. So the fact that this budget actually does put more resources into that, I think is a pretty good thing.
If you have a topic our political experts should tackle, especially if it's out of left field or right field to be balanced, email next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag HeyNext.
I'm Steve Steger. If you've been to Denver's Central Library in the last few years, you've noticed it. Among the books in that beautiful building are signs of society's ills. The library opens its doors for everyone, so that means some homeless people and drug users spend time there. Just this year, the library began keeping track of heroin overdoses on the property. They've had 6 overdoses since the beginning of the year. The problem became noticeable enough that the library began stocking Narcan, a nasal spray emergency responders use to revive heroin users who've overdosed. They got it at the end of February and have already used 4 doses. The city's chief librarian won't lie. This certainly creates a problem for those who want to use the library as a library, but she says Denver seems to understand that the library is really the ultimate form of public space.
In general, most people understand that there are a lot of people in our community who are suffering from any number of challenges, whether those are behavioral issues, mental health issues, substance abuse issues. So I think most people have been very compassionate about it, but clearly we hear from some folks that they'd like to see the library that they remember from their youth, perhaps in a small town that wasn't necessarily facing these kinds of challenges.
Now, on top of the Narcan and a staff of security guards, the library also employs social workers to help people get the help that they need. Now, I asked Jeske if this is what she expected when she became a librarian. She says not at all, but she understands the responsibility of being one of the few public places where folks can go inside and use a bathroom as well.
Steve, thank you. Colorado's legislators are talking tonight about a bill that would let our state refuse to help the federal government round up people based on their immigration status if the state decides that action is unconstitutional.
These are words that came out of now President Trump's mouth when he was on the campaign trail. And while he may have been using that as campaign jargon, communities heard it, and communities are afraid because of now the power that he holds.
Sanctuary state is a term that's without a formal definition, but that is basically the idea of this bill. It would limit when local and state officials can tell the feds about someone's race, ethnicity, religion, or immigration status. Opponents say that this bill, which is named for Colorado Governor Ralph Carr, who opposed internment camps during World War II, is an unnecessary scare tactic.
You know, the Ralph Carr Judicial Building here and the whole history of the World War II is a wonderful history to learn about, but it's rather out of bounds, I would say, to try to bring this in to our current political state. There's been no suggestion there's going to be any internment camps or electronic markings on people.
House Judiciary Committee is discussing the bill right now. If it passes the House, it's probably dead on arrival in the Republican-controlled state Senate. So this is Sunshine Week, when journalists invite the public to consider how we, together, can hold public officials accountable. And one major way that we do that is through open records laws. Luis Toro, head of Colorado Ethics Watch, joined me for a forum on the topic, and he painted a pretty sorry picture. What is the state of accountability in Colorado today, especially as it relates to Open Records Act and how citizens can see what their government is doing?
Well, it's not very good, to be honest. There's a lot of problems with our Open Records Act. We've really fallen behind other states, especially when it comes to access to digital records that are kept in electronic forms. And I think that one really good way to identify fake news versus real news is to look at their sourcing. And if real news will go to the source, the government, and get documents and go through them. And that's the importance of open records law for this discussion.
Toro was one of 9 guests discussing the idea of getting to truth in an age of alternative facts. And you can see that full 30-minute program right now on the next Facebook page. Our next question is from Ruth Ann Smith, who writes, regarding the recent Colorado driver's license mistakes, does the Colorado DMV outsource the printing of licenses to foreign countries? Ruth, we called up the DMV. They say a third-party vendor prints those licenses. They're out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. Marquee ID Systems. Same company prints IDs for 9 states as well as Washington, D.C. and the province of Quebec. So they're made out of state, but not out of the country. Hey, I gotta ask, is the A-line working today? Train to the plane? Come on, big money. Yes, it's working today. Look at all those happy people. Great news for RTD. We gotta celebrate the hits as well as the misses. And RTD's out with a new service that has the snappiest name. It's called Next Ride. Not making this up, and no, we do not get a cut from this. It's a new web page that helps you figure out when the next RTD bus will be there to pick you up. It uses traffic predictions and the speeds of the buses as they're monitored to give you a more exact arrival time. They have not yet launched the light rail part of Next Ride yet, and we're told that Next Ride is not optimized for the A-line because of course.
Next, we peer behind the pieces at History Colorado. A young entrepreneur learns through trial and error. Her error basically maced her family.
It created a cloud of ghost pepper.
Northern Colorado's very hungry lost goat is claimed, leading us to learn its name is not actually Dumpster, but is equally awesome. Next.
I know a lot of you lost sleep over the lost goat, the one found wandering in Weld County that we told you about yesterday, the one corralled by Windsor Severance firefighters and fed a bunch of crackers in a dumpster pen overnight. Dumpster the goat has been claimed by his owner, who tells us the goat's name is actually Butthead, which is a phenomenal name for a goat. Butthead is 13 years old, and his owner's not sure how he managed to get loose.
Now that's funny, and a story with a happy ending, no less. I'm meteorologist Kathy Sabin. Hey, winter's winding down, as you know, and, well, the vernal equinox is Monday, and no signs that with the new season we're going to see a new weather pattern. Jet stream being pushed northward by building high pressure. That means more warm, dry weather conditions, a trend that is looking to continue right into the end of this month, perhaps even into April, our second snowiest month. Winds, something that we're tracking today, coming in out of the northwest, pushing temperatures way above average, 20 degrees above average today. Still gusty over some of the higher passes, elevated fire danger due to the wind, the warm weather, and that red flag warning will extend out through 7 o'clock, potentially extended out into tomorrow. But there's a weak front coming in from the north that will drop temperatures into the 60s while still above average, a slightly cooler day. So much for the snow I was hoping for in the high country, but at least temperatures down here will be comfortable moving into St. Patrick's Day and the upcoming weekend. A few high clouds out there tonight, 43 degrees, little wind west of town. Highs tomorrow in the mid to upper 60s, again above average, but at least a little bit of a change, something for me to talk about here. Heading into the weekend, highs near 80 both Saturday and Sunday. Cooler with a 20% chance of showers on Monday, and then Tuesday temperatures warm right back up again. The sunrise and sunset pictures, phenomenal. Keep sending those in if you would.
Thank you, Kathy. So next time you help one of your kids with a school project, consider whether they're driven enough to just go and turn it into a full-blown business. Emily Rudnick is an 8th grader who was assigned to create a business plan for her class at Aspen Academy in Greenwood Village. So Emily just went right ahead and created the whole business. Emily, like Next, is a fan of spiciness, so she and her dad created Rud Spice. They had actually been talking about this for years, and she saw the school project as an opportunity for a product launch.
We have shared them with our family and friends, and part of the reason why I wanted to start a business with this is because over those years we have gotten such great feedback from the people. It's really cool how you can start from nothing and get to something in such a short amount of time, because we started these business plans in January.
Emily's Spice Blend is going to show up at Savory Spice Shop starting Saturday. It'll be there for a limited time, but that's not the last we hear of her.
How do you help the viewer see the connections that you see as a curator?
Call it the rest of the story, call it the backstory, or just call it a new way to appreciate history and art in Colorado. It's a sign that better not be a direction or else people are in trouble. And Living Life in the Minority, a bipartisan bunch, explains what it's like to know your favorite bill is doomed to defeat.
From the KBTV Action Center in Denver, this is 9 News, #1 in Colorado.
I might have one of those red, white, and blue coats in my closet at home. I don't know that the bosses know that I have it. Maybe I'll wear it here sometime. So there's a backstory behind every piece of art. And History Colorado and the Denver Art Museum are working together to showcase the backstory right alongside the main attraction in a Western art exhibit that opens Saturday. and we get a look through the lens of photojournalist Tom Cole.
Backstory: Western American art in context represents a thoughtful interweaving of art and artifact that presents a more complex, a more diverse viewpoint of the American West from roughly the mid-19th century to the mid-20th century.
This exhibit really is about that, to help people understand the stories behind how we acquired things, the connection between artifacts and paintings. My name is Elisa DiGiacomo, and I am the Senior Curator of Artifacts here and the Curator of Art and Design at History Colorado.
Well, artifacts tell different stories than works of art, and how works of art tell these incredibly layered and nuanced stories about process and creation and about vision and about looking and about travel. But how do we unite those into a seamless curatorial vision? My name is Jennifer Henneman. I am Assistant Curator of Western American Art at the Petrie Institute of Western American Art at the Denver Art Museum.
This particular compass is fascinating because it was used to plot the city streets of Denver in the early 1860s. When he's plotting and he's looking at laying out the streets in Denver, there are still American Indians living in the area.
Our works have never been shown on this kind of color before, in this kind of dramatic lighting. So from a very basic visual design perspective, these works pop in a way that our viewers will not be used to seeing, and I think they'll be really excited about it.
Again, that exhibit opens Saturday at History Colorado in downtown Denver. How often do we talk about a bill at the Colorado legislature and we tell you right off the bat, this one's not going anywhere? What's the sense in that? Well, it's how our state system works. And today, legislative leaders in the minority in the House and the Senate, a Republican and a Democrat, both told our politics guy Brandon Ritteman that the system works.
One thing maybe some folks in the audience don't realize is that every member of the legislature gets to introduce 5 bills, and the rules provide that basically every bill gets a hearing in Colorado. Do you sometimes wish that wasn't the case? Do you think it would be more efficient if we didn't have to spin our wheels over things that we know don't have a future?
No, I think it's a great system. I really think that that's what makes Colorado different from Washington, is we don't see these backroom deals they don't happen as often. What we see is that each bill does get a fair hearing.
I'm proud for that process that really exists, and it's part of this true democracy that we have. That is something that I know we both respect, given that we both served our country, and so that's a good thing.
If you want to be one of the cool kids who watches that full discussion on balance of power, tune in along with me Sunday morning, right before NBC's Meet the Press. And we will be back shortly with your views tonight in photos and in feedback. It's a sign, and it was spotted near Ruby Hill Park in Denver, where there is a detour into the Platte River. See, going right does not seem right in this case. Jason Patton tweeted this our way, wondering if it was okay to take the river detour. If the photo zooms out at any point, you'll see that that would be right into the drink. Send us the signs that make you do a double take. Email next@9news.com or use the hashtag HeyNext. We are no longer broadcast in the dead of night, thanks to daylight saving time. So tonight we asked you to share your views, quite literally, and Kimberly Plock had turkeys trotting through a yard in North Glen tonight. Robert Filliam's dog loved the warm weather today, and it is perfect grilling weather, especially for the man who says they all call him Barbecue Doug in Aurora. You would say, hey, this isn't news. But I would say, you know what? The murder and mayhem that makes up the usual news isn't a very fair depiction of most people's everyday life either. And that matters as well. Greg sends an email saying, noting the flags flying outside 9 News, do you guys ever fly the POW-MIA flag? That is a good question. We fly a lot of specialty flags. Greg, I'm going to take your idea straight upstairs to management. See you next time.